Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. We are just a few days away from the NFL draft, less than a week actually, and we have two more divisions to cover in our free agency recap. We're going to start with the NFC East, and this was a different offseason, a good one if you are not a Cowboy fan, but I don't know about the other teams how much they really improved. So let's start with the New York Giants. So the New York Giants, I really don't know how to describe their situation. I like their hire in Brian Daboll. Didn't like how they handled the offseason. I mean, their quarterback situation is really weird. I would expect that they go back to Daniel Jones. I mean, in my opinion, unless you can get Malik Willis, none of these guys are really worth taking in the top 10, and they have two top 10 picks. In my opinion, those picks would be better be spent on the defense and the offensive line. Those have been their two big weak points. They are apparently shopping Kadarius Toney, which, pick well spent, I guess. No touchdowns, less than 200 yards receiving for the year. Dude really didn't do much in New York. It really feels like the Giants are kind of now finding some direction. Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, I expect to do well, as they are kind of disciples of the Buffalo regime, and I thought Brian Daboll was going to be one of the top coaching hires this upcoming offseason because of the work he did with Josh Allen. I don't know if he could fix Daniel Jones. In my opinion, it might be time to move on. I don't know if Tyrod Taylor's the guy, though. Tyrod's a kind of a bridge guy, though. Tyrod Taylor is, in my opinion, the guy you start when you don't have your franchise quarterback yet, or if the guy you drafted isn't ready yet. So if they were to, draft Malik Willis, or if they were to trade down and maybe check, Carson Strong, or Matt Corral, or Sam Howell, take any of these guys and then start Taylor for, maybe half the year, maybe the whole year if they get lucky. Okay, fine. I can understand some direction there. It's going to take as much time as you need to develop your guy. But it really does feel like they're going to be forced to start Daniel Jones, and I don't think that's on Schoen or on Daboll. I think that is Mara. I think even though that the last regime has pretty much been thrown out of the window, they refuse to admit defeat. And I know that Mara admitted it. Yes, they did not do a great job developing Jones, but Jones hasn't exactly taken advantage of the opportunities. It's like the arguments that some Broncos fans have had with Drew Lock. Yeah, the development wasn't fantastic, and you definitely could have done a better job to support the kid, but he also failed to live up to any chances you gave him. So I think it is time to cut bait. I don't know what the Giants are doing personally. In terms of what they added, Matt Breida, he's fine as a running back. If the rumors are true that they're really shopping Saquon, then the running backs are going to be him, Matt Breida, and Wayne Galloway, which, those are fine options, but they're not what Saquon was. I think Saquon's is pretty much done. He's tired of being a show pony, and I don't blame him. He's an elite talent, a very good kid, and I think he wants out. He wants to go to a better situation, and believe me, there are some teams who would definitely take calls for him at running back. Don't know if you get a first round back for him, though, so Matt Breida seems like that, just shoring up a problem. Ricky Seals-Jones, he's their Evan Ingram replacement. He's a decent tight end, all things considered. He can catch, but he's not as the big vertical deep threat that you want at tight end nowadays. Mark Lewinsky, that's at least an upgrade at guard. Again, their offensive line's been a huge issue for a long time. I can admire that they're trying to address it. In terms of key losses, Will Hernandez, veteran of the line, that wasn't very good. I think Hernandez, they might lose his presence if Glowinski doesn't live up, or if they don't take a guy who's as good. Jabril Peppers, to me, never truly lived up to the Odell trade. I get it that he had that really good back half of the year in Cleveland when they moved him to strong safety, and he was replacing Landon Collins, and they were trying to capitalize on that. He was a box safety. He wasn't great in coverage. He kept getting injured. Jabril Peppers is an okay player, but he isn't a starting caliber player. Maybe New England is what revives him, and if there's anyone that would revive a defensive player who needs it, it's Bill Belichick. But I don't see that from Jabril Peppers going forward. Evan Ingram losing the speed and the vertical threat, but he had such inconsistent hands that it really doesn't know if, I can't tell if the Giants lost anything or gained anything back. Logan Bryan was supposed to be a great defensive signing. He never really worked out. Their defensive system wasn't that great, and you can thank Joe Judge for that. Nate Solder was one of the worst free agent signings I think we've seen in the last 5 years. He really did not need all the money they gave him, and he was on the back end. He kept getting injured. He just was not a great left tackle. And then Kyle Rudolph is just an aging guy at the back end. He's not there anymore. So overall, I didn't love what the Giants did this offseason. I'm not going to say they got worse, but they certainly did not improve, at least in my opinion. I just expected a lot more from them. And I just think I get it that the draft is going to be their main showing, but it all depends on what they do with the quarterback position. But at least they're not in the turmoil that our next team is, the third place team, the Washington Commanders. I'm really going to have to get used to saying that name. That name is so terrible, same as the logo. And, okay, we'll start with what they got back. I mean, Carson Wentz, if you'd have talked to me about 2 years ago, I'd have thought this had been a home run trade. Now, he's a broken QB. He's a bridge guy. I can't say whether or not they really believe in him as the future of their franchise. They have him for 2 years and then they can cut bait with him, but I don't know. I don't think that Carson Wentz is going to thrive because I thought he was in the perfect ideal situation in Indianapolis, and now he's going to come to an even worse situation with a team with significantly worse weapons, a significantly worse line that just had some major cap sheddings in their offseason. I just don't think this team is any better. So I just don't know how Carson Wentz is supposed to thrive here. They added Andrew Norwell, which I don't know how much of an upgrade he is at guard. I mean, Eric Flowers and Brandon Scherf. I know Eric Flowers didn't work out in New York, but he was a decent guard here in Washington. And Brandon Scherf, I thought, was one of the most underrated guards in the league. And they're both gone now. So maybe they're drafting somebody. But I just don't see those guys being a significant upgrade to what they had before. J.D. McKissick, they brought him back at a re-sign. Decent running back. Decent weapon in the backfield alongside Antonio Gibson. Then Efe Odaba, he'll be a defensive line depth guy. To me, they just lost a lot of key pieces like Landon Collins, Joe Bostic, Brandon Scherf, Matt Ioannidis. That's just the surface of it. They had a ton of cap shedding because they were kind of up against it. And they can thank the trading for Carson Wentz. Here's the problem with the Carson Wentz thing. You didn't just trade for him. You gave 2 third-round picks, and you took on the entirety of his contract, which you did not need to do. I don't know what Washington is thinking. I think this is a desperation move. I think it's a Hail Mary to save jobs. I don't know if Ron Rivera is really on the hot seat. I mean, the guy hasn't really had too much to work with. I mean, his best quarterback since he's been here was Robo-Leg Alex Smith, and I don't know what you're supposed to do with that. So, Washington. Their offseason wasn't fantastic on its own. The off-field stuff makes it even worse. But then we go to the team that somehow made the playoffs, even though I thought they were going to bottom out, so I got to give some credit to them on this one. The Philadelphia Eagles, who finished second in the East. I thought they had a decent offseason, all things considered. They brought back Derek Barnett and Fletcher Cox at cheap re-signing, so that's good. Kaiser White, who's an underrated linebacker, he'll be a nice add to the core. Zach Pascal, who's a nice slot receiver, and I think this might spell the end to Jalen Reagor. With Devontae Smith being as good as he is, and the fact that the Eagles probably had a shot at another upgrade at receiver in this upcoming draft with the 2 first-round picks that they still have after the insane dealing. I got to give Howie Roseman some credit. We all blasted him this past offseason. The dude walked away with 3 first-round picks, and then he made another trade, and he's still got 2 first-round picks to play with. And he's got 2 first-round picks next year. Like, the dude's, he's dealing. I thought the real steal that they got was Hassan Reddick, who they stole from the Panthers. They needed help on the edge, and in my opinion, he's one of the better ones from this free agent class. It should work out all right. They didn't spend too much on him, and I think Hassan Reddick will be a nice add to that defense. In terms of key losses, it was mostly veteran guys. Alex Singleton, decent linebacking depth guy, good special teams guy. Don't know how much they'll miss him. I think Kashir White more than makes up for it. Steven Nelson and Rodney McLeod, to me, are just kind of, they're the vets of the team. They're not fantastic. I do think they should consider the corners in this class, probably. But again, it is a very top-heavy class. I've brought it up before. I don't know if they're seriously thinking about taking one of these guys. In my opinion, if you can't get one of the top 4 guys, it's going to be a little, it's dicey. And then you got Ryan Kerrigan. He left, but in my opinion, again, they make up for it with Derek Barnett. And if you draft one of the edge guys, you're more than set. I kind of like what the Eagles did this past offseason. I think Roseman is he's learned from his mistakes. I'm going to give him that. He's learned from his mistakes. At least I hope he has. Of course, the question is what do they do with Jalen Hurts? Do they truly believe in him as their future? I wouldn't ditch the guy just yet. You did go to the playoffs last year. Yeah, you got blown out by the Bucs, but then again, I think a lot of people would have. I don't know if anybody was beating the Bucs last year unless you had a high-powered super team like the Rams. Like, in my opinion, that's the main reason. And the Rams almost lost that game. The Rams barely got out of there alive. So, Philadelphia, to me, they're a very young team. They're kind of ahead of schedule. They shouldn't have made the playoffs last year. They did. So, I think at this point for them, it's just kind of stay in the course. Don't get too greedy. Just kind of let things play out. I think they're doing just fine. Now we go to the team that Eagles fans, Washington fans, Giant fans, you all loved this offseason. I think all of America loved it too. The Dallas Cowboys. I don't think we realized just how crucial last year's run was. They lost so much talent this upcoming offseason, and that's because Jerry Jones does not know how to manage a cap. That Dak Prescott deal hit them hard. And it's not like they lost depth guys. They lost a lot of key players, particularly on their defense, which has always been their weaker unit. Let's talk about what they got first. Dante Fowler, who's a decent edge rusher. He can play. Don't know if he'll be the premier guy that Randy Gregory was, but he'll be there. James Washington, I don't know how he's supposed to replace Amari Cooper, especially because, CeeDee Lamb, and you gave all the money to Michael Gallup, which you did not have to do that. Coming off a torn ACL, he hasn't played a full season in 3 years, so good luck with that. I just don't know how much of an upgrade James Washington is. One of the biggest problems with the Pittsburgh offense was their weapons. Washington looked promising at some point. He's a decent speed threat. The problem is the guy just, he has consistency issues. So it's tough for me to see him becoming a number 1 or a number 2 here in Dallas, especially with CeeDee Lamb on the scene. Van Der Esch, talented player, injury issues. It's almost like they drafted Sean Lee all over again. Same with Dorrance Armstrong. In terms of key losses, Lyle Collins, that's a huge eat out of that offensive line. They're probably going to have to draft a tackle. It's a decent tackle class to get a guy. I don't know if you'll be able to get like Charles Cross or Ekwonu or Neal, but you could definitely get one of the decent tackle players, like maybe Trevor Penning if he falls into your lap. Randy Gregory's gone, so there goes their other edge on defense, which means you're going to need to draft somebody in probably the second round. Maybe Jermaine Johnson if you get lucky. He's one of the more underrated prospects in the class. Connor Williams is gone. I don't know how much of an upgrade he is at guard, but I can tell you what, he's certainly better than whoever they have coming up behind him, and we've witnessed that firsthand in the 2020 year. Cooper's gone due to the cap, only getting a 5th round pick back, and they traded a 1st for him. So, yeah, have fun with that. Blake Jarwin might not come back, and he's been one of their better tight ends. And then both of their safeties, in Keanu Neal and Damontae Kazi, even though they tried to convert one of them more into a linebacker, the Cowboys have a lot of holes to fill, and they'll need to fill it to the draft, but I don't know if it'll be enough. And are you really going to be comfortable throwing out a defense, starting a bunch of okay guys, and maybe some rookies that aren't truly ready to start yet, but that's all you can afford? I just don't know what Dallas's direction is. And the problem is, this is their own fault. They didn't manage their cap well. They didn't do a good job managing their situations. Jerry got too close to his players. Let personal feelings get in the way. And now this is where they're at. They're forced to shed talent just to be cap compliant. And I don't think anybody feels bad for them. It's not a situation that you want to be in, but I think they'll be fine. I mean, their division is so bad, and they should win it. I think they are still the better team of their division. Maybe Philly has a chance to go at them now. Like, if Philly drafts really well and they hit on some of those picks, maybe Philly makes a run at it. But I could still see Dallas winning this division just because they have the best quarterback in the division. Coaching is off, but I think the Cowboys, their contending window isn't as open as they want it to be, but oh well, this is your choice, Dallas. That'll do it for the East. Not really a fantastic offseason from the East. The best team that had the best offseason was Philly, because at least Philly recognized that they have something to build on, and they went for it. So I can give them credit for that. Anyways, you guys stay tuned. In a couple days, I will have the NFC South, and that will wrap up all free agency videos. And then we got the draft, and it's exciting times here in the NFL world. We got a lot coming up, and then I have some other videos planned. So anyways, you guys stay tuned. Thank you all for watching, and until then, I'll see you guys later.